Well, I'm delighted today to be speaking with Amanda John from Old Mutual, but also an entrepreneur running her own business, Congealed Legacy, recording this interview here at the Radisson in Johannesburg. Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you for having me, David. Nice to be here.
So we're going to talk about some of the trends you see here in South Africa in financial services, but first of all, it'd be great to hear a little bit more about your background.
Where do I start? So I'm not a Joburger. I've been here about 12 years now, but I'm originally from the Eastern Cape. Maybe you're not too familiar with other areas of South Africa. And born and bred there, went to boarding school for quite a while and studied law. So something interesting, I studied law. But for some reason, I was just always interested in financial services. I think you try to link things up thinking, so I studied law, what do I do there? Compliance, legal advice? I'm not interested in any of them. What else do I do? So I think I had quite a bit of curiosity around different things. So that's kind of my background in terms of how me being in financial services came about. And in terms of the work I do in financial services, a lot around financial planning. I used to be a financial planner myself. I think if I add up the couple of years, probably a good 6 years. And then since then, kind of just grew into different management roles. But a lot of what I do is around advisory practices, it's around practice management, it's around advisor development, it's around advisory strategies in terms of customer engagement. That's my background.
And one of your passions is consumer education around financial services. Congealed Legacy is part of that. Why don't you tell us about the inception of that?
So how that came about, my business partner and I, Nelly, she's also actually now at Old Mutual Wealth. We were working together in a previous company and we were doing advanced postgrad in estate planning. And obviously we spent quite a lot of time together. And at the time we started studying, I had already started having this idea of doing something around financial literacy because at that time I had left me being involved too much in the financial planning as a planner myself, and I knew that there's a chance I'll never go back there. But at the same time, I was like, what do I do with all of this experience and what do I do with all of the knowledge gained? And I thought one of the things I have not liked is being put in a position where you must go and do financial education and then you kind of step away and you have no idea.
You're not at the coalface anymore. Yeah.
You have no idea what's their journey, what has happened to them, what they're struggling with, what are some of their wins, and I made a decision to put together something like this on the financial literacy front. And Nelly was more than happy to partner with me on this, and that's how that started.
And so you've got online resources now, but also you've got some published books and materials that we'll share a link to down below. But tell us a little bit more about what you've published then so far.
So the first book we did, it's more of a daily journal. So like I said, I grew up in boarding school. So my mom, when they dropped me off in boarding school, she gave me like a daily journal. Something just to motivate me, something I could write notes in. And I didn't really like doing that, but because she gave it to me, I always made the time to reflect on it a bit and write some notes and read what was there. And I think that style of learning and being motivated and being kind of grounded really made me feel like this is something that can work for other people.
In the discipline of it.
In the sense that financial literacy is not something you can learn now and think you're going to be able to apply the principles right now and then it's going to be good for you forever. It won't be. You need to practice the principles. You need to have a certain mindset as you get into it. And I think the daily journal was really about saying, how do we get people to really get their mindsets ready for the journey ahead, whether they are really like in shambles with their finances right now or not. That's not the point. The point is, where are you trying to get to and where do we help you start? So the journal is designed to cover most aspects of financial literacy, from the positive mindset, budgeting, savings, wills, estate planning, risk, literally everything around financial literacy. And we hope that people use it as a journey as opposed to just learning and trying to adapt some of the principles to their different settings.
And you've got there's an online game and application now that I think you've just launched, which is very exciting.
On Saturday, actually.
Fantastic.
On Saturday, yeah.
So what's your hopes for that?
My hopes, even for that kid's book, have always been to really find a way to integrate financial literacy into what we call in South Africa life skills, which is one of the curriculums, especially in the junior primary schools, which is taught at schools. But if you look at those books, you're talking life skills, okay, where's the financial literacy stuff here? It doesn't even exist. So that is
what are
one
some of the key principles, do you think? I mean, things like people understanding interest rates, compounding, people understanding debt, and the cost of debt, and avoiding getting into problems. What are the most urgent, do you think, items that everyone just absolutely needs to understand?
So when we did the kids' book, we actually also have a board game set. And the reason we did that is because we understood that we've written something for adults, but at the same time, most South Africans have not been brought up in homes where they can have money conversations. Hence, we started writing for the kids as well, and then bringing on the board games so that adults can learn to be comfortable about having money conversations in the household. So I think to answer your question, that would be one of the things for me in terms of to find ways for people to really understand why it's important to save and the power of compound, why it's important to manage debt in a good way, because there is good and bad debt, why it's important to have risk plans or cover themselves as an asset. I think sometimes people don't look at it like that. You are the first asset before anything else, because the earning potential lies with you, not with your home, not with your car, not with your family, but with yourself. And we try to find fun ways of having people start those conversations, not only learn for themselves, but make it common to actually have the conversations. Because if you look at our South African culture, people don't have these conversations. So one of the things we're trying to change there is to say, make it okay and fun to actually have conversations with the family.
And I think there's a broader conversation as well that we often will say in the UK, that in schools they don't teach you how to set up a company or file your taxes or create a business plan. And actually, that's the broadest sense of financial services kind of life skills, but it's an important area, isn't it? And there's so much information available online, but it's giving access to that information to the right people, isn't it?
It's true. And managing the businesses, because what we have also found, I remember when we landed quite a nice project just before COVID, one of the requirements was that a third of the people who were going to workshop had to be entrepreneurs. We don't talk much about entrepreneurial stuff, but it's about financial literacy, because the people struggle to manage the monies that come into the business and out in the right manner, because they themselves don't manage their own finances. So
it gives them the opportunity. If they're well managed personally, it gives them that platform to
Definitely.
actually. Interesting. I mean, another area of passion for you is women in business, women in financial services. I mean, what's your assessment of where you're at in South Africa with the industry in financial services that you look around? Do you see inspiring leaders? I mean, there's a lot of challenges across the board in financial services right around the world at getting the diversity piece in place. But what's your view?
I do think most people are trying to do something. I think sometimes the expectation is that we want to see the results now. And I
Impatience.
think sometimes the expectation is that for us to feel like transformation is happening, we start looking at the JSE listed companies. How many women are there? How many women of color are there? I'm like, guys, that's all good and well, but what's happening within your circle? What's happening within your environment? What's happening in your organization? Are you seeing more women in the financial planning space, or just generally financial services, starting to take up roles where they become decision makers, starting to take up roles where they manage teams, they contribute to the strategy, they drive strategic objectives of the organization? For me, I will tell you now, I do see that happening. And I think one of the things that I believe motivates, or rather makes me feel these things are happening, it's because of the different communities that I see around me. One of those being the Lenient Circle for Women in Financial Planning, which I happen to have started with a friend of mine, Didi. We were doing some work at the Financial Planning Institute together. But besides that, there's other organizations that are similar to that. So I think just an interesting story, I recently read an article that APSIP took out yesterday, and they were almost profiling 10 women that they taking through a CFA program with Gibbs. And I was like, come on, man, what more do we actually want? You know, so for me, it's about the small wins, because I see when we see multitudes of those different wins, in time we're going to see the bigger impact.
Because to have a real impact with women on boards, there has to be the talent pipeline, doesn't there, to come and fulfill?
Very true, very true.
Okay,
Very,
interesting.
very true.
And then just more broadly, I mean, on financial services, you're involved in working with brokers, people within financial services settings to help them become more successful. And I mean, in that time, you must have worked with a huge number of brokers.
I have.
I mean, what are some of the sort of the salient features that you find about the work you do with them? What are the kind of principles you're trying to discuss with them?
So I work very close with the first line managers who manage teams that work very close with the advisors. So we've seen all sorts of advisors, you know, your older generation, your more new school kind of advisors. And I can tell you what's common is that people are wanting to learn. And you know why I'm saying this? Because I often find in the work that I do, people are like, but are you sure those practices will adopt to these things we're trying to do with them? Because they kind of used to what they've been doing. And I'm like, they will. It's about understanding what matters in your business right now. What are you struggling with? Where are you not seeing efficiencies or whatever it is, you know? And so I think that has become the common thing for me to say, people are willing to learn no matter how long they've been in the industry for. Even if you think they have their traditional ways of doing things, they're willing to adopt new ways and be agile. I think the problem is sometimes we think that's more of a technology thing, and it's not. I think the technology comes in later, because for anybody to even adopt technology and integrate certain solutions within their different businesses, they need to understand why it's going to work for them. They need to understand how it's going to build those efficiencies. They need to understand how it's going to drive the bottom line. They need to understand how it's going to help them manage their customers or whatever it is. So I do find that learning piece being something that so many people are open to.
And I mean, could you characterize more old school advisors in more of a sales mode, trying to sell specific financial products, not looking holistically, perhaps ignoring things like new trends like ESG and impact investing and a broader discussion on a long-term basis? I mean, is that a fair characterization?
We're not seeing that a lot
No.
anymore. People are like, my customers are asking about
Yeah.
these things and I know nothing about it.
Yeah.
Or I have no idea where it fits in the conversations I'm supposed to have with them. So when we host different webinars for different topics, it's always people that are saying, that's a topic I want to know something about, because I want to be ready for that conversation. I want to be ready for the sustainable investing conversation. I want to be ready for the millennials who are going to inherit money from their parents. I want to be ready for the millennial who says, you know what, I'm more into robo-advice or whatever it is, and to say, no problem, do that, but let's have the relationship, you know, because of whatever reasons. So I am finding people are very open to that. I think we just expect people not to be. So when you go to people with that, they're more likely to be a bit more, you know, apprehensive. But I think we need to be open to the openness of financial advisors out there, no matter how old school they are.
And you mentioned, I mean, technology is not, it can't be viewed as an answer, it has to be part of integrated advice. I mean, there's a lot of digital disruption going on in South Africa, aren't there, as other leading African economies, with mobile apps and different things, fintech perhaps taking over from the traditional banking sector, where they've left a gap and they've left customers unserved. But how do you see generally, you know, financial services being disrupted by technology players that spot that need, spot that client base that's not getting looked after?
I don't think this is really my opinion. I don't think the fintechs are trying to take over. However, I think it's about how willing are we to embrace the fintechs and to partner and collaborate to better serve what we're trying to do in the different organizations. I think what fintechs are trying to do, I mean, we hear a lot about hyper-personalization and all of these things, automation and things at your fingertips. And that's all good and well because we are all experiencing it. But I feel they're not trying to compete and they're not trying to steal from the market and make your market share less, but rather are looking to possibly partner and collaborate to say, listen, we already have a solution. We have a solution that can fast track how you engage with your customers. We have a solution that can fast track how you service customers. We have a solution that can help you automate your process for, I don't know, for queries or for claims or whatever it is. There's different things. I think sometimes we think fintech and you think banking, but it's so much more than that. You know, I mean, one of the things that we come across a lot, even with the old generation advisors, so you call them, but is that they're willing to listen to you talk about automation, but they have a different understanding of what automation is. But when you really take the time to have a deep dive in their practices, you can already see very clearly where the automation can help them. And it's about, I'll say, selling that solution to help them understand this is for ease of doing business. This is to help you free more time so you can do really what matters, which I think at the end of the day, it's probably more around the relationships.
And obviously the pandemic changed the way the front line of financial services delivers its service, video conferencing and calls. I mean, I know from colleagues in London, you know, it really sort of changed the way private bankers interacted with clients, and often for the good where they've got a disparate client base. How are you seeing that come through some of those habits? Do those managing relationships on the front line, are they enjoying that bit of freedom from location, or what are they feeding back to you about how it impacts their relationship?
I think many people don't want to work like that. And I think it's because we're in the business of people, to be quite honest. You know, I think I can also do so much, do that much virtual. You want to interact, you want to almost feel the conversation. You know, we talk a lot about focus on the why with people, and then the how is kind of like going to take care of itself. And that why is a lot about understanding you as a person, understanding your family, understanding your business. And I think while all of that can be done virtually, and maybe these are sometimes the differences between South Africa and other places, people are still wanting a lot more of the human interaction, but at the same time, they are learning to almost like work from anywhere. I know there is somebody that motivates me quite a lot, Quibus Clean, and he has been doing a lot of, talks and engagements around working from anywhere, and it works. It does work. But I think at the same time, we shouldn't expect people to kind of just adopt that as a way of work.
Wholesale,
While customers at the same time are possibly not totally ready for that themselves. So it's almost like this transition of balancing the two, you know?
I mean, the commitment of a physical meeting is actually something of substance anyway, isn't it? The fact you take the time, you travel out to see the client, right? We're committing some time together, whereas the video call can be very flaky, it moves around, it's like you say, people don't have the time and the setting. So I think it's just interesting to see the way that it's changed some things, but will be a tool, I guess, that just supplements going forward.
And I think, David, we do a lot of work around practice segmentation or customer segmentation within a practice, and helping advisors understand who are the people that are really there to help you grow your business from a revenue point of view, from a customer onboarding point of view, from people you really get along with, people you enjoy working with. And it's not to disregard the others, but I think it's to understand you may have certain categories of your clients where a certain group is actually okay to have a quick 15-minute check-in with you virtually. A certain group is okay to have a review with you for 45 minutes on the phone or via some other means of communication. But I think there is always the people who really find value in just maintaining that relationship, like almost in its rawness, you know? Yeah.
Absolutely. And if you're doing some coaching work with an advisor, I mean, what are some of the things you might work on? What are some of the scenarios, I guess, you might be more actively working with them on?
So some of them I've mentioned, like customer segmentation, customer onboarding. I think what's important in that work is almost getting people to be vulnerable. You know, especially advisors
take the barriers down
this
a
for
bit.
40 years. They're like, really? Do you think I haven't done this myself? They're like, but I know you have. But you know what? Let's just chat. I think it's making the space for people to feel vulnerable and to be okay with that, for you to be able to help them identify the gaps and be willing to do something about it. Because a lot of the times, because your practice has been running well and you've been making the money and you've got a great customer base, people tend to think, but I'm okay. And you're like, but do you have a succession plan? Do you have a succession plan that helps you start to maybe disassociate from some of your customers? How do you go about doing that? How do you pass those people on to other people? So a lot of the work we do is really around practice management. And I don't like the word sometimes because people automatically think compliance, because you do practice management so you can tick compliance boxes, and I'm like, no, it's so much more than that. So I think to your question around what are some of these things, definitely things like segmentation, relationship management, customer onboarding, value propositions have become a big thing. We recently had a webinar and so many people said, I do have a proposition, but sometimes I don't know if I'm saying the right things in it, or I don't know if it lands the message I wanted to land about me and my business. So people are still looking for that fine tuning, and I think it's about doing exercises with them that can help them fine tune certain areas of their practices that can help them become a bit more efficient.
Do you see advisors using social media to kind of fine tune their brand? If they're under a big umbrella, actually LinkedIn or other platforms are an interesting place to really position, get your value proposition and get that out into the market. Do you see examples of people doing that well? Yeah.
Definitely. So, and I mean, I'll just speak simply about some of the ladies within our Lean In Circle for the women in financial planning. I think because we the young ones, you think everybody's comfortable with being on LinkedIn and Facebook and really positioning themselves, their brands, what it is they do and sharing customer success stories or whatever. But a lot of people aren't, so you get people who say, guys, how do you do it? I don't even know.
I don't know what to post kind of thing.
Exactly. I don't even know where to start, And at the same time, people have different flavors. I'm not into podcasting. Like, ask me to podcast, I'm like, really? No, I'm not interested. But other people are more into podcasting. Other people are more into writing articles. Other people are more into sharing customer experiences, good and bad. And I think that does become part of your proposition because it's about the things that really truly resonate with you. And I think how you take those things out, you will get customers on the other end or other people within the industry who can learn from you that really just resonate with certain things that you do.
So it's finding your voice, finding your medium.
Thank you.
And being authentic, isn't it?
Is.
Within the corporate bounds, which is, a constraint. But I think I always encourage advisors, have a voice on there,
But corporates are also encouraging that. I know a lot of the work we do is around saying, let's do part of or rather like building some of your communication pieces. You will fine tune it the way that you want. And I think sometimes it's because people don't know where to start. Are you looking for a video? Are you looking for a clip? Are you looking for a podcast, written article, whatever, any form of media? We've got it all. Just have a look at our library in a way, if I can put it like that, and find what works for you that can help you understand where to start. And I think over time, people start to find that voice, and they're like, actually, I kind of have my own style now. So I think organizations are also wanting people to be themselves, and I think to use not the big brand, but the bigger support to say, we've got all of these things. You don't need to, create something new. We've got it, but you can make it your own.
So we're coming to the end of 2022. You've got all these new initiatives kicking off, the new app publications. What's in store for 2023?
2023, personally, I want to be having some big conversations. I'm not going to lie to you. We've been running the business now with Nelly for just over 4 years. And I think it's time. I think it's time we do what we did when we named our company Congealed Legacy, to start cementing certain things, because that's really a process of solidifying things. That's the reason we named the company that way, because we believe in process, we believe in being patient, we believe certain things take time, people need to go through a journey. And I think now we're at a different space of that journey where we're saying government, public sector, private sector. Let's do something together, because I think everybody is seeing the same problems, and everybody in their own different ways is trying to solve for them. Maybe sometimes similarly, maybe sometimes in different ways, but I think that keenness to collaborate, I personally think it can yield better results.
Fantastic. Well, look, Amanda, so good to talk to you. All the best with your initiatives, and we look forward to sharing this interview.
Cool, thank you, and thanks for coming through to South Africa. Hope you had a great time.
Pleasure, had a wonderful time.
The latest technical content delivered through global conversations with professionals for professionals.